Tonight we have breaking news here on this Sunday night. The video never seen before, the crucial minutes after a CEO is shot and killed in New York City. The surveillance images showing the moments Luigi Mangione allegedly shot and killed UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And we now see what played out after. Witnesses looking on, a woman with her coffee, a man from the hotel. How many minutes before anyone helps the CEO? Also breaking the new images tonight, the woman seen being chased amid President Trump's immigration crackdown. She is a U.S. citizen chased by Border Patrol agents. What authorities are saying about this tonight? The pipe bomb suspect who put Washington, D.C. on edge. The surveillance in Pierre Thomas tonight. On the alleged motive now revealed, why they say he did it. The dangerous deep freeze from Chicago to the northeast. What's now coming this weekend? Lee Goldberg has the forecast. Tonight, the 9/11 calls we have never heard before. The Texas families calling for help. The flooding is very, very bad. Staffers at Camp Mystic, where 27 girls and counselors died, pleading for help too, and the demands that changes be made. Tonight, new reporting that second deadly U.S. military strike on that boat. More than 40 minutes between the first strike and the second one, and now a source telling ABC News after the initial strike, the survivors holding on to that capsized boat could be seen waving. Tonight, the controversial move by a CDC advisory panel, handpicked by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, and a key vaccination recommendation now changing. Dr. Richard Besser and his reaction tonight. Just in this evening, we've reported on those self-driving cars racing past stopped school buses, picking up children. The stop sign out. There's major news coming in on this tonight. This evening, the World Cup 2026 draw. Who will the U.S. be playing? And an honor for President Trump. We remember one of the world's most celebrated architects. Tonight, Frank Gehry and the buildings in the U.S. and all over the world that have drawn millions. Tonight, actress Goldie Hawn and her tearful tribute to a friend was moving. And Martha Raddatz takes us to Pearl Harbor, America Strong. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir. Chilling new video shows moments after UnitedHealthcare CEO's shooting. Good evening. We do begin tonight with the breaking news, the chilling new video never seen before, now showing the crucial moments after Luigi Mangione allegedly shot and killed that healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside a New York City hotel. We have all seen the surveillance videos showing the gunman sneaking up behind the victim, opening fire, but tonight, for the first time, we see what happens afterward. The witness on the street, a woman with her coffee, a man from the hotel, and several minutes go by before anyone tends to that CEO who had just been shot lying on the sidewalk. Here's our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky, leading us off. Tonight we're seeing newly released video of the chilling moments after Luigi Mangione allegedly shot and killed UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside a New York City hotel. You can see the shooter walk toward the victim, appearing to briefly glance down as he laid dying on the sidewalk before turning to cross the street, then starting to run, disappearing down an alley. This woman holding her coffee seems to hear the first shot. She flinches as Thompson stumbles, then seems to look straight at the gunman still taking aim before she runs off. Seconds later, a man in the hotel steps outside, looks toward Thompson crumpled on the ground, and starts pointing in the suspect's direction. But it would be 3 minutes before police arrive. In 10 to the CEO, another 8 minutes until an ambulance pulls up. They're looking for a male about 5 feet 10 inches in height, cream-colored jacket, black mask, black gloves. As police launched a manhunt across the city, they allege Mangione escaped on a bike, dumped a backpack in Central Park, then hailed a taxi before he hopped a bus out of town. That never-before-seen video, a window into those moments when Thompson, a father of 2, lay dying in the street before police could arrive. Mangione's attorneys have been trying this week to get critical evidence against him thrown out from the case. That effort will continue next week. David Katersky leading us off on a Friday night. Aaron, thank you. Woman seen running from federal agents as Trump's immigration crackdown intensifies. We move on tonight here to the alarming new images this evening. A woman seen being chased by federal agents near New Orleans, screaming to be left alone. She's a U.S. citizen being chased by Border Patrol. But Homeland Security is now saying tonight it comes amid similar scenes playing out across the country as President Trump's immigration crackdown grows. Pierre Thomas with the images tonight. Tonight, harrowing video showing a woman frantically running away from federal agents in Louisiana. The woman's story, the story of leave me alone. Mass border agents chasing that woman on foot as she screams in fear, running into her house as her stepfather races outside. Initially thinking she was being kidnapped, demanding answers. That woman was a 23-year-old U.S. citizen, DHS saying in a statement. All agents left the area as soon as they determined the individual in question was not who they were looking for. That incident comes after federal agents pulled this woman out of a car during a border operation in Florida as she screamed she was a U.S. citizen. This is a fair way to do it. Authorities placing her in handcuffs, briefly detaining her. Officials say she was driving her undocumented boyfriend's car and refused to comply with orders to identify herself. And tonight, newly elected Arizona Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva claiming she was assaulted by ICE when she joined protesters who had blocked the street in Tucson. She released this video of the alleged incident. This is like the restaurant I come to literally once a week, and was sprayed in the face by a very aggressive agent. But tonight, Homeland Security officials pushing back, saying Grijalva was not targeted, but near someone who was pepper sprayed as they were obstructing and assaulting law enforcement. Critics say the immigration campaign has been too aggressive, but David, tonight Homeland Security officials are unapologetic. Peter Thomas, stick with us here because you have new reporting. Pipe bomb suspect was disappointed in 2020 election results. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro as well tonight after that major break you reported on last night here, the pipe bomb case that of course rattled Washington, D.C. 5 years ago, that major arrest. And now you've learned tonight a possible motive and how they got them. That's right, David. We had an exclusive interview with the U.S. Attorney for D.C. today. She told me the FBI found evidence of the suspect's cell phone pinging at all the locations those bombs were planted. And she says the suspect has been talking, acknowledging his frustration about the 2020 election. Well, he was disappointed in various aspects of the election, but this guy was an equal opportunity bomber. He put a bomb outside the Republican National Committee and the Democrat National Committee. He was disappointed to a great deal in the system, both sides of the system. David, the U.S. Attorney says she's confident she has her man here. Thomas, on both stories tonight. Pair, thank you. Millions impacted as dangerously cold temperatures grip much of the U.S. We turn now to the dangerous deep freeze from Chicago to the Northeast. And what's now coming this weekend? This brutal cold, a very brief reprieve, and then the deep freeze again on Sunday, wind chills in the single digits in teens for many as we start the next week. So let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg from WABC tracking it again tonight for us. Haley. Hey, David. While the big chill is briefly easing, here in the Northeast, the Arctic reinforcements are coming right in two parts of the upper Midwest. Look at these brutal temperatures in Minneapolis into Chicago over the weekend and early next week. It'll feel like it's above freezing in New York for a couple days, in the Arctic chills back Monday, and that's going down to DC, in Atlanta to the storm, in the Pacific Northwest. Heavy snows from the northern Cascades into the central and northern Rockies, 1 to 2 feet of snow, a large swath of 1 to 3 inches, northern plains all the way into the Great Lakes, isolated total 6 inches. This is the front that gets into the Northeast, and the cold comes back to the I-95 corridor on Sunday night into Monday. David Chor, Lee Goldberg, and the team at WABC, thanks so much. Harrowing 9/11 calls from Texas flooding on 4th of July released. Tonight, haunting 9/11 calls from the horrific flood. Disaster in Texas now made public for the first time. Families across Hill Country and workers at Camp Mystic pleading for help to 9/11 tonight, the calls for the first time, and we will hear only from the callers who survived because there were many callers who did not. Here's Trevor Ault tonight, the heart-wrenching 9/11 calls from people in desperate need during those devastating Texas floods. Many of the callers did not survive. We're only playing calls from those who did. River has flooded the whole house. Okay, get out. Many of the families demanding answers, asking why more was not done to warn communities before the catastrophic floods and why for so many it took emergency help too long to arrive. The flooding is pretty bad, so we will have them out there. Okay, reporting very, very bad. In the middle of the night, the Guadalupe River rising, 26 feft in 45 minutes. Hundreds of people calling 911. They're right on the water. Our house is right on the water. I know. I'm going to answer the next call. First responders unable to get to those home. My kids, they had to go to the second floor and the water's right. Understand though? Right now, unfortunately, the best thing I can tell you to have you tell them is to get as high off the ground as you can. The floods claiming the lives of 138 people, 27 of them from the girls' summer camp, Camp Mystic. One caller saying they rescued a pair of young girls who'd been swept away from the camp. We're okay, but we live about a mile down the road from Camp Mystic, and we've already got 2 little girls who have come down the river and we've gotten to them. But I'm not sure how many else are out there. In the aftermath, Texas officials promised they would install a flood warning system. That still hasn't been funded, but local officials are vowing to have sirens in place by next summer. David, more than 400 911 calls were released today in total, 23 hours of people desperate for help. Now, many of these summer camps are vowing to reopen next year with substantial safety plans in place. David, it's really difficult to listen to. We think about all those families again tonight. Thank you, Trevor. CDC panel drops universal hepatitis B birth dose recommendation for newborns. This evening, the controversial move by a CDC advisory panel, handpicked by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., newborns and a key vaccination recommendation now changing a vaccine for newborns that had been in place for decades. Tonight, Dr. Richard Bester and his reaction here. Here's Steve Osunsami at the CDC in Atlanta. The decision at the CDC tonight ends more than 30 years of routine vaccinations that, by the CDC's own estimates, have prevented more than 6 million American children from being infected with hepatitis B. 8 votes yes and 3 votes no. The motion passes. The CDC director still needs to sign off on this. But once that happens, the U.S. government will no longer recommend that every newborn should get a vaccine for hepatitis B unless the mother tests positive or doesn't know her status. Parents can still vaccinate their children whenever they want, but if a child does get vaccinated, they now recommend to wait until the baby is 2 months old. These changes are coming from the new advisors picked by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a longtime vaccine skeptic, who filled the panel with at least 6 members who share his feelings. It's actually very important to illustrate to the public the different opinions and different perspectives. Dr. Richard Bester is the former acting director of the CDC. I can no longer tell people that they should look to the CDC for the best information about how to protect their children. Dr. Sue Wong was at the meetings trying to talk them out of this. She was born before newborns were getting the shot and unknowingly contracted hepatitis B from a family member. She says the vaccine helps spare her children. For me, I'm a mother with 4. I have hepatitis B. I cannot tell you how relieved I am that my baby's got happy vaccine and all 4 of them are hepatitis B free. Across public health, there are now doctors and scientists who are once again telling American parents not to listen to recommendations coming from this building directly behind me. They underline that a child can get hepatitis unknowingly from any member of the family, not just the mother. And they stress that this is a serious disease, a lifelong infection of the liver. David. All right, Steve Osunsami at the CDC tonight. Steve, thank you tonight. Source says video shows September boat strike survivors waving after initial attack. New questions for the Pentagon as new details now emerge about that second strike on a suspected drug boat that killed 2 survivors. A source now tells ABC News that after the initial strike, more than 40 minutes passed before the second missile was fired. Another source who watched the video says those survivors had been clinging to the overturned boat, appearing defenseless. The source says at one point the men were waving to something overhead. The Republican chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee says it showed a lawful and righteous attack. Looking back at the life and legacy of architect Frank Gehry, who died at age 96. Tonight here, tributes to one of the world's most celebrated architects. Frank Gehry has died. Legendary architect Frank Gehry created some of the most awe-inspiring buildings ever designed. Most notably in northern Spain, the Guggenheim Museum Bilbao, clad in titanium, opening in 1997, 1.3 million visitors in its first year. Frank Gehry once said they asked him to build a museum unlike any other. We want the building to have a presence in the community. We want it to be strong. We want our little mud pies in great building. There was the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles opening in 2003. In Paris, the Foundation Louis Vuitton Museum in 2014. He was early in his embrace of computer technology, willing to break the rules of architecture. Back in 1978, the home he redesigned in Santa Monica, California, his son Alejandro there, right in the front yard. A wood frame home originally, he then surrounded it with plywood, metal, chain link, living there for 4 decades with his family. Born in 1929 in Toronto, as a boy he would work part-time in his grandfather's hardware store. The family would move to LA, and he would take pride. So many decades later, when his celebrated Walt Disney Concert Hall opened just a few miles from where he grew up, Frank Gehry died at home in Santa Monica today at 96. Frank Gehry tonight, in his own words, "I don't want to impose myself for the ages on anybody's life with a building. There it is, it's yours. Now make it into what you need it to be." In his own words, Frank Gehry and his work being celebrated tonight. When we come back here, Martha Raddatz takes us to Pearl Harbor. Also actress Goldie Hawn here, her tearful tribute to a friend, and it was moving. Also had heart-stopping moments as deputies work to save a 4-year-old girl from a house fire. You'll see this in the World Cup 2026 draw. Who will the U.S. be playing a lot of? Eyes on this today in the answer. In just a moment here, Wisconsin deputies save 4-year-old girl from deadly house fire. Night here, heart-stopping moments as deputies save a 4-year-old girl from a house fire just outside Milwaukee. The deputies were following the child's cries they could hear from inside as smoke filled that home. The officers then finding her and carrying her to safety. Officials say the child's mother did not survive. There's no word on what started that fire, but the child is safe tonight. Waymo to issue recall after driverless taxis were seen driving past stopped school buses. Now to those self-driving cars we reported on This Week Here Tonight. There's late word coming in from the company behind them. Waymo now issuing a recall for those cars. The images we showed you, those vehicles racing past stopped school buses in Austin, Texas for one while. The buses were picking up children. Stop sign out at least 19 times since the start of the school year. Waymo issuing a statement tonight saying, quote, holding the highest safety standards means recognizing when our behavior should be better. When we come back here tonight, the stage is now set for the World Cup. Who will the U.S. be playing? An actress Goldie Hawn and her tearful tribute tonight to a friend. U.S. placed in favorable 2026 Men's World Cup group. To the index of other news tonight, setting the stage for the 2026 Men's World Cup, the matchup of 48 teams taking shape, the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, of course, serving as host nations during the ceremony for today's draw. FIFA honoring President Trump with its first ever FIFA Peace Prize. The president sharing the stage with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. The U.S. placed in Group D. The U.S. will face Paraguay in Inglewood, California, June 12th. Then they'll face Australia in Seattle on June 19th. A third opponent will be determined. Later will be following. Of course, tonight, a tearful Goldie Hawn shares emotional tribute to Diane Keaton. Goldie Hawn paying tribute to her dear friend Diane Keaton. Hawn getting choked up as she honored Keaton at the Hollywood Reporters Women in Entertainment Gala. She starred with Keaton in First Wives Club, and she suggested Diane Keaton is now one of the stars above. She is a star, and if we can have a fantasy, which I do, is that stars are really people who died a long time ago that did something really good for the world. I think maybe that's where she is right now. Diane Keaton died from pneumonia back in October. Goldie Hawn honoring her friend. When we come back here tonight, Martha Raddatz takes us to Pearl Harbor 84 years later, and what Martha found. ABC World News tonight with David Muir. Sponsored by Consumer Cellular. See how much we can cut your bill. America Strong. Honolulu's Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum helps Americans remember the tragedy 84 years later. Finally tonight here, Martha Raddatz takes us to Pearl Harbor 84 years later. It was just before 8 a.m. on December 7, 1941. The Japanese have attacked the Pearl Harbor, Hawaii from the air. The surprise attack by Japan on Pearl Harbor. More than 400 Americans killed, 100 injured. Tonight, 84 years later, the team at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum in Honolulu is determined. America remembers. Chairman of the board of the museum, retired U.S. Air Force General Ray Johns, taking me. War II T-6 built in 1944. Wow.